guys, it's Julie, designer at the Quilted Cow, and today's tutorial is the Wesley's Wheelie bag. Before we begin, I'd like to thank my sponsors, Husqvarna Viking Sewing Machines, Creative Grids Rulers, Mats, and Rotary Cutters, and Wilmington Prints. Let's begin. The Wesley's Wheelie bag is the perfect bag for all of your on-the-go needs. It fits perfect on a little kid's bicycle. You can add it to the front of a walker or a scooter with these little straps. You can find this kit on our website at thequiltedcow.com or on our Facebook Lives on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Let's start with the first step. The first thing you want to do is attach your main fabric to your foam. Today I'll be using Free Fuse powder, just a little sprinkle onto your foam interfacing or your foam batting, and heat set it with an iron. This stuff is amazing for all your bag making needs. I'm going to turn it around and apply it to the other side. Once you have your main fabric bonded to your foam batting, we're going to pick our quilting design. For this bag, I'm just going to do some simple stripes at an angle. Adds a nice little pop without having too much trouble. Once you have it quilted, you'll need to trim it to the correct size to match your lining. You'll want to do the same thing to get the correct width. Once this is trimmed to size, we're going to set it aside and start working on our tabs. So you want your tab fabric and the interfacing. We're going to apply the interfacing right to the back. Next, we'll want to turn it wrong side up, and we're going to fold the short ends at a 1/2 inch and give those a press as well. Once that's done, we're going to fold our tab right sides together, and we're going to stitch along the long side, and we'll be using a tube turner to turn it. Repeat those steps for your next tab. Now, anytime I use a tube turner, I find it easier to sew a seam right across the end of your project. That way your tube doesn't go all the way through, and it just makes it easier to turn. If you don't have a tube turner at home, what you can do is just start your fabric just by poking your thumb through the end to get it started. I use chopsticks. You can use a wooden dowel, a pencil, scissors. You can use anything to get it started. And just slowly start working it up. And then I just take my seam ripper and I cut out the few little stitches that I put right at the end of the tube. Once both of your tubes are turned the correct direction, we're going to give them a press with our seam right on the side. Once those are pressed and wrinkle-free, we're going to step to our machine and add an 1/8 inch stitch all the way around. Make sure to stitch the ends closed as well. Once you have done your top stitching on this, we're going to measure down a 1/4 inch from each end so we can find our snap placement. So to find your snap placement, you find the center of the end and just draw a dot. We're going to repeat that on this side. Once you have your dots made, you can use an awl to poke the holes into your fabric. I personally prefer to use the seam ripper. It's just easier to control, and it's always handy. So just poke a dot right where your line is, cut just a few stitches of fabric, and this is where you will put the cap part of your snaps. Once you have your cap through, you're just going to squeeze the stud part of your snap on until you hear it click into place. Now on the opposite end of the same tab, you're going to be adding the cap on the inside, on the same side that you have your stud piece. So make sure the stud's on the same side and just poke your cap through at the other end. So you poke your hole through the opposite end. Be sure that your socket side matches up with the snap for your stud, and your stud side matches up with the snap on your socket. Squeeze it together. Whenever it's completely assembled, It should snap together to form a circle. You're going to repeat that for your other tab. Now we're going to place these onto the main part of our fabric. We're going to start at the top and measure 2.5 inches from the center. Once you have your center mark drawn, you're going to measure 2.5 inches over and 4 inches down. You'll repeat the same thing on the other side, and this will be your tab placement. So to attach your tabs, you want to fold it in half and just give it a finger press. You can draw a line there if you want to. And we are going to center our tab. We're going to center our tab right on the center of the mark we drew. We're going to have the stud on the top and the socket part facing towards the bottom. I'm just going to pin this right in place, and we'll repeat this to attach the other side. And we're just going to sew a line in the sewing machine right across that fold just to secure the center of it. Okay, once that's sewn in place, you can remove your pins and trim all your extra fabric or your extra threads. The next part is we're going to attach our rubber band. So to begin that step, you need to cut your rubber band in half. It doesn't need to be as big as it is, we just need a little one. So once this is cut in half, we're going to attach it right at the top. We're going to use the same mark we used before for the center line. So to attach the hair elastic, we're going to take our ruler and use the same center mark we used before. We're going to measure 2.5 inches from the center. We're going to take our elastic and fold it in half to create a loop. And we're going to base stitch this right at the top edge, centered on these marks. The next step is to add your buttons. Okay, your elastics and your tabs were added at the top. This time we're going to add our buttons at the bottom. So we need to find the center of our bottom as well. So once you find the center on your bottom and make a mark, we're going to measure 2.5 inches over on both sides. And we're going to measure 6 inches from these marks down onto our bag. I'm going to add a little X. This is where you'll sew your buttons in place. Once you have your buttons attached, your bag is ready to be assembled. What you want to do is fold it right sides together, and we're going to pin or clip the edges and just sew down our side seams. Repeat these on the opposite side. Now we can step to our machine and sew the edges. Once you have your edges sewn together, we are going to squish it so it's flat and our seam is in the center. And then we're going to measure from the corner to box our corners in. So this is not a very deep bag, but we're going to measure 1.5 inches right from the end for both sides of our seam. I'm going to put some clips right on the corners just to hold this in place. And we're going to repeat it on our other corner. You're going to step to your machine and sew across the line we just drew. Once you have your seams sewn, you can take your clips off, and we are going to use our scissors and trim 1/4 inch away from the line we just sewed. Doesn't have to be precise. Just get all the excess trimmed off. Repeat that for your other corner. Once both of your bottoms are trimmed, we're going to turn our bag right side out. Poke out all your corners, and let's set the exterior of our bag aside, and we're going to work on the lining next. To do the lining, it's the same steps we did for the main. This just doesn't have any excess quilting or pieces added onto it. So let's press our fabric. Once again, we're folding this in half, matching the right sides together. Pin or clip your edges into place. And we're going to step to the machine and sew them with 1/4 inch seam. Be sure to leave a turn opening on one side or the other so that you can turn your project right side out. Once both of your sides are sewn, we're going to box our corners the same way that we did our main. Once you've sewn on those lines, we're going to repeat, trimming 1/4 inch away from their stitch line. Doesn't have to be specific, doesn't have to be perfect. Just trim off the ends. This time we're going to leave our lining wrong side out, and we're going to place our main inside. You'll want to line up your side seams and clip or pin them into place, and then work your way around the rest of the bag. Now we're going to step to our machine and attach the lining to the main by sewing a 1/4 inch around the top. Next, let's turn our bag right side out by poking it through the hole that we left in our lining. We need to turn our turn opening under by folding the raw edges inside. Give it a little press on our ironing mat to make sure that's a nice crisp line. Next, let's step to our machine and we're going to sew our turn opening closed. Next, we're going to press our lining into our main. Maneuver your fabric so that your seam is right on the top. And then we're going to press that into place to get a nice crisp line for when we top stitch. Our last step is to do a top stitch around the top edge of our bag using that crisp line that we just created. Once you have your top stitch done, we're going to measure 2 inches from our top edge and draw a line all the way around our bag. Once you have your line drawn 2 inches, we are going to step to our machine and sew on the line we just drew. This is going to help create a nice smooth fold for whenever we close our bag. Once you've sewn on that line, if you're using chalk, just erase it. I used a friction pen, so I'm going to use heat to clean up that line. Fold it on that stitch line, attach our buttons, and we have got the cute little Wesley wheelie bag. Once again, add it to anything for your storage needs. Great for little kids' bikes, strollers, walkers, whatever you need. You can find this kit on our website at thequiltedcow.com or on our Facebook Lives on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Please like and subscribe for more tutorials, and thanks for watching.
Okay, you wicked cool quilters, good job. You made it to the end. We would like to thank our sponsors, Husqvarna Viking Sewing Machines, Creative Grids, rulers, rotary cutters, and mats, and Wilmington Prints for the beautiful fabrics. Thanks for watching.